whenever you actually look at the blue lines versus the red lines, how many of these names would go into negatives just through 1% APY? But remember, SoFi is at 4.5%. 1% wouldn't even be the difference maker. It would be many percent more, maybe 3% to stifle off SoFi. And then in that point, not even the JP Morgans, not the Bank of Americas would even be in the positive.
And a lot of these people are buying the banks for the dividend as well.
How can legacy banks honestly stop SoFi from continuing to steal clients out from under them?
They can't.
No, they
can't do that.
Yeah, they can't do that.
Did anybody buy this week? I mean, you bought this week, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't buy a lot, but I bought like 20 shares of SoFi. So at 730 or whatever, 740.
Yeah, I increased my position by 1.98% at 744.
Oh, wow. It's not bad.
How many shares do you buy, Steve?
I increased my position by 1.98%.
So how many shares, and then what percentage of your portfolio is SoFi? That's all I need to know.
I actually don't know the set.
Steve's actually going to quit the podcast, bro. Steve's not showing up again. Oh my gosh.
I think the first news that came out was Galileo and FedNow.
We offer every single capability that they need. It's the full suite that we need for businesses, banks, for customers. We handle it all. And now it's essentially just a total payment rail.
This was the post on Reddit. Chris Hager posted this around Galileo being a full service provider for FedNow, providing APIs for both incoming and outgoing instant payments. Galileo will process incoming and outgoing FedNow transactions on behalf of banks, fintechs, and other financial institutions who use FedNow. So this can be used as a standalone service or in conjunction with other Galileo products. So basically, it's another tool in their arsenal that they can leverage for the partner organizations that are on Galileo's stack that want to use FedNow.
You'll just see all the capabilities. They're all checked off. They do everything. This actually came as quite a surprise to me and could be a benefit of Galileo actually being a part of SoFi, because the only companies that I've seen being able to handle transactions through FedNow are licensed banks. Adyen was the first one. Tevis and I just recently did a call about that, so that was exciting. Just recently afterwards, Galileo is now also going to be able to handle FedNow transactions. Some people are getting confused on Twitter thinking that Galileo is the sole payment processor for all things FedNow. Not true at all. What it essentially means is that if there are going to be payments that are routed through FedNow, Galileo can monitor and process those payments and make sure that people, if they need to get paid out instantly, that's something that we can now offer our clients as well. So banks don't actually really want to rush into this because it's not really good for banks, but it's really, really good for clients.
There's a ton of banks that are already ramped up on FedNow and just leveraging that entire infrastructure for Galileo to provide it through their APIs for all of the partner companies that are leveraging Galileo. It's just another tool in their arsenal, right? Like they can.
So here's the concern is that if you allow someone like TJ, for example, who's in this chat, to take out $500,000 instantly out of his account, and he can do that across multiple accounts all instantaneously, that doesn't leave a lot of time for banks to be able to potentially sell some collateral in order to have cash to actually make sure that those assets go out on time. Back whenever Silicon Valley Bank was collapsing, at least they had a couple days between the times of whenever customers were trying to take out their money and whenever the money actually settled and moved for them to sell off some things, right? If things are moving instantaneously, that makes it that much harder on banks. A lot of banks are signing up for FedNow to receive FedNow payments, but none of them are really signing up to send FedNow payments because that would be quite a stressor.
Okay, I'm not sure if it's whether to receive or send, but this is the list that was published by the Federal Reserve on July 20th of the early adopter financial institutions. There's about 35 in here. Wells Fargo is one of them. Adyen is here. Financial institutions serving as settlement agents and liquidity providers.
Yeah, no, I heard something like 50 plus signed up before it even went live or something like this, but I haven't seen anything of them actually using it. This was the first period ever since they've been tracking the data since 1994, I think, that banks have seen across US a decrease in deposits. I think it was a decrease of $874 billion, the first decrease that they've ever seen year over year. And from Q2 of 2020, which is this column here, to Q2 of 2023, this column here, the year over year differences between all these banks is quite stunning. Now, although it says these numbers are in thousands, they're actually in millions. HSBC has seen a $92 billion decrease. Bank of America, $107 billion. JP Morgan, $72 billion. Just crazy, crazy numbers. And whenever you read about the CFO for JP Morgan, for example, he describes this as being part of quantitative tightening. So if you're taking money out of the system, obviously you're going to have a decrease in deposits. That being said, however, SoFi is seeing none of this, adding $10 billion new year over year. Yes, the percent gain is high, 370% gains year over year, but also we are a brand new bank. But still, the fact that we're still adding on to deposits just in absolute terms is quite unique. They're not the only player doing it. There is other players, but versus the big four, it is quite interesting.
I think this dovetails well with the thing that Chris posted around M2. Maybe I can just bring that up. And
yeah, please do.
It also talks about deposits. Chris posted this 2 days ago on Wednesday, basically saying that the commercial bank deposits, which are in green over the 2022 and 2023, basically go in lockstep with M2, essentially the money supply in circulation, to say that as money supply drops, the commercial bank deposits drops. And then Chris overlaid the trajectory for SoFi, which has been a straight line up. Now, while this is all positive and it also plays along with the table that Tannor put up, I wonder to what extent this is an outlier because of the infancy of SoFi's bank charter, to say that during this ramp up period, because we only have 1 year of data, not even a full year, right? As this ramps up, if we're 5 years into this, if we're 10 years into this, of course, it's going to start to look more like this, because there's obviously going to be a correlation from how much the macro affects these numbers. But the reason it looks like this today is because SoFi Bank is so much in its nascency, and as a result of that, people are onboarding onto it for the first time until it plateaus and reaches a level of slower growth.
If you look at it from customers that potentially were not bank customers before, or let's say with the SoFi cash management account, which weren't counted as real deposits, and then we become a bank, they could have massive amounts of savings in those accounts that were zero deposits before that now become 100, 200,000 just in that single user. There is going to be a massive ramp up in the first little bit, but now we're kind of at that point where new deposits are either coming from people's just paychecks continuing to come in through our existing user base, or new users are coming in. So here's the really exciting part is quarter over quarter, we're still looking at $2 billion or more deposits each quarter. That's not quite the same as the JP Morgans or the likes of these that are still losing billions of dollars of deposits each quarter. That is still a negative where we're looking at a positive, regardless if we're in our infancy.
Yeah, one of the stats I saw this week is that overall, we have lost $1 trillion in deposits. We went from like 18.2 trillion to 17 trillion for all commercial banks. The problem is we added so much money via stimulus payments in the United States. So the reason we had that bump of $1 trillion back in 2020 was obviously because of stimulus payments. So that kind of fluttered away. So it's not really that money's leaving the system. The M2 supply stuff makes a lot of sense that Chris tweeted about because the Fed is doing quantitative tightening. So the fact that it's going to SoFi and the bigger banks are still struggling with deposit decline, I think that is the competitive moat of SoFi right now in a high interest rate environment, that 4.5% customer acquisition cost. And I think that can't be understated. The fact that we're going to do $2 billion in deposits at a time where money supply is going down and the big banks aren't, because like there's just no reason a sensible person would put their money in JP Morgan getting 0.001%. It's an exciting time to invest in SoFi from that perspective if you're looking for a growth company, because they're growing deposits.
It makes you realize how much these big banks are not caring about what SoFi is doing because they
100%.
make such a small impact. The $12 billion of deposits is a rounding error. like you probably have more money fleeting out to go into cryptocurrency markets than you do just to SoFi in general. So they really don't care that much. We can sort of be still in the shadows. People don't quite know about us yet. And yet there's still so much opportunity to grow because, you know, there's not much of a concern from the big players there. But I don't know if you guys saw this. Bill Gurley talking about regulatory capture. Did you guys see this?
I love that talk.
What do big banks do against SoFi? Is there even anything that they can do from a regulatory standpoint to push us out? Because I mean, we have a bigger and better bank license than Goldman Sachs. We have the exact same license that a JP Morgan does.
I mean, look, they can say anything they want to say. What they would have to do is build a better mousetrap
Or buy them.
Which I'm still not convinced somebody isn't going to buy SoFi.
Me neither. And yeah, I think it's fine if they do. But
I wouldn't be happy about it, but I can see a scenario where it could happen.
Look at this. What do you guys think about this? They could influence more analysts to downgrade SoFi.
Yeah, that's an ongoing occurrence that has happened for the past couple of quarters. Who
It's
cares?
also a short-term thing. Like if they influence an analyst to downgrade SoFi, it's going to affect the stock. It's not going to affect them crushing
Yeah,
it
it's
on
not going to
deposits every
affect.
quarter.
It's not going to
No,
affect people putting their money there.
and
Exactly.
I do think it can influence the real fundamentals of the company, because then they can't actually use their stock to draw from.
I think the Bill Gurley chat was the main takeaway there was that more regulation stifles innovation. Essentially, like you need builders, not referees. With regards to SoFi, I think you nailed it, Tanner. They're too small right now to be significant, but it's just a matter of what is that sweet spot, because there's going to come a time where they're not too small to be significant, and then it's going to be too late to buy them. You either buy them now when their deposits are going to be, way smaller than they're going to be a year from now, because in 2 or 3 years, it's a bigger pill to swallow to buy SoFi if it's all of a sudden a $30 billion company versus right now.
It's just a matter of how much can we be sort of a sleeping giant. You know what I mean? Like how much can we grow within it? And Eddie, Frugal Buck, he showed off what it would take banks and how it would affect their net incomes if they were to just increase their deposits APY by 1%. Whenever you actually look at the blue lines versus the red lines, how many of these names would go into negatives just through 1% APY? He just took the deposits, added 1% on them. It's a little bit more complex than that, because maybe you could get more deposits through 1%, or there would be a whole bunch of factors that would change. But remember, SoFi is at 4.5%. So 1% wouldn't even be the difference maker. It would be many percent more, maybe 3% to stifle off SoFi. And then in that point, not even the JP Morgans, not the Bank of Americas would even be in the positive.
And a lot of these people are buying the banks for the dividend as well, right? TFC has a nice 7.6% dividend. That's why they're getting some buyers at these lows that they're at.
Is there anything that we can honestly think about potentially could be offered in a branch that could not be offered online that they could innovate on and gain new market share? How can legacy banks honestly stop SoFi from continuing to steal clients out from under them? Cut the dividend. But is that actually going to happen?
They can't.
No, they
can't do that.
Bro, if TFC cut their dividend, that stock's going to like 15
They
bucks.
can't do that. Like the only reason that people buy a lot of these banks is for the dividend.
Yeah.
It's not for the growth.
So essentially, we're saying this is SoFi's market to really just go after, because this is the prime opportunity for bigger banks to be struggling in a high interest rate.
I mean, we're getting into the IPO market where these are big boy areas, and a lot of certain areas that we're going to start getting into with banking is going to really take like a lot of capital, where JP Morgan and the likes are more the investment banking side, like where Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley really take off. Like these are opportunities for us as well. And retail is just a great way to sort of get started. Once we actually have capital, we have to remember this is a bank. Like we know that they're good with financials. That's the only people they're hiring is people that are, sort of in that field in general.
Who knows if SoFi's rate is that impactful compared to these traditional banks having access to bonds and CDs. I think with SoFi, it's going after the younger demographic and building a better product that services a demographic that is being overlooked by their competitors.
I don't think the APY is our selling point.
I don't think it is either.
It's a tool to get them in the door.
It doesn't hurt. It does not hurt, and it's definitely a strong point, but I don't think it's what's the driving factor.
But it is though, right? Because it might not be the driving factor of the longevity or the lifetime value, but the APY is the carrot that's dangled in people's faces to say, hey, look, we are not the JP Morgan or the most established or largest bank in America. We're a small bank, but here's what we do offer in terms of benefits. Once you enter that ecosystem and you realize that it's actually way smoother and seamless for you, that paired with the switching costs, then the product sells itself or the ecosystem sells itself, but the APY is what gets you through the door.
I think the reason why we haven't competed with the Robin Hoods of the world and all these things trying to go up to 4.9%, because we absolutely can. I think the main reason is that I think these marginal increases on APY has not shown a real improvement. They don't need to.
I would rather see them put the time and effort into business accounts.
So
I
one
cannot stress that enough. I would really,
Yeah,
for
but they're
them to get to the next level, they need to service small and middle-sized businesses.
sure, but Steve, they're not mutually exclusive. The
I'm
Fed
I'm
rate,
not
right?
saying that they are. I'm just saying for them to get to where they want to get to, they're going to have a full business arm because there's so much capital out there that the large banks are overlooking.
I think there's a huge amount of opportunity for going after customers that are with these traditional banks that are being just completely underserved because they really are. And it's funny whenever you see the surveys, how many of the individuals just literally won't even give a second thought to a fintech, right? Or a digital bank. It's crazy. It's over 50%. And yet, whenever you actually look at where do you do your banking for these traditional banks like JP Morgan, it's all iPhone, tablet, like 80+% are all doing it digitally right now anyway.
And you
And
got
so
to
it's
remember, a
so
lot of people are ingrained. A lot of people have 10, 20, 30-year histories that they just don't want to be bothered with switching. And some people like that mentality of if I ever need to go get a certified check, I can just walk into a branch. If I need a safety deposit box, I walk into a branch. Like there are things that SoFi does not have. And I'm sure you can get a certified check from them, but you're going to have to get it mailed to you. It's not, you can just go to a branch if you need to go to a closing on a mortgage or something.
I had a freaking hard time with that buying this house actually. I only use digital banks and they told me how much I needed to pay after all fees and everything like this, like the night before. And they were like, yeah, just go into your branch before you come in and then hand it to us the day of before noon. And I was like, I need 2-3 days. Like I needed it to mail to me. So not only did I've got about 3 different places that I bank with that I store money at, and the 2 wouldn't even do it, and the one said they were going to take 3 days.
And look, that's a thing that's very common. Even if you're buying a car, you may need a certified check if you're not walking in with cash on a down payment. A lot of dealerships may not take a personal check. Getting a mortgage or doing a closing, they're going to want a certified check. So if you need to wait to have that mailed to you, that's certainly a deterrent.
This is also, Steve, why I think it's so important for SoFi to be branching out first, not in the wealth management arm, although that is something on their road. It should be something on their roadmap in the future. But I think it's so much more important if they want to amplify new member additions from just everyday people for them to get into lower barrier entry products like the invest product, like, SoFi Money, even Relay to some extent, because of the high switching costs for you to change your primary financial institution. I was out yesterday with coworkers, and one of them was looking to switch their bank, and literally, like, her dad was suggesting new banks to go with, and she's like, I honestly don't know anything about this. And so I was just thinking about that in that context, and a lot of people are like that. They don't care about what the APY is. They don't care about like what the actual savings rate or percentages, or they're just not financially inclined. That's not where their interests lie. And to them, the cost to switch is overwhelming. Like, to me, it's annoying, but I actually can do the math and the cost benefit analysis weighs in my favor. Whereas for her, for example, it won't. And so having that low friction alternative, the low barrier to entry product, they can experience the ecosystem without having to make that full commitment of switching their entire financial institution and banking history.
Yeah, look, I agree with everything you said. There's multiple critical success factors that they need to implement over the next several years to get to where they want to go. That's certainly one of them.
Sure.
Like there's multiple that they need to hit, and it's not all going to come at once. It's just a matter of how they put everything on the roadmap and how they scale.
Yeah, like and I think products like Relay will take a bunch of those consumers that necessarily because honestly, and we've spoken about this so much, and I'm so on Tevis's team. I'm so happy you said that. Just the idea that there's a bunch of these people that don't want complex things. Like I know that Steven, you really need Think or Swim to trade, but like a lot of people just want robo advisors. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I don't need it, but it's a free tool that is absolutely amazing.
But I am aware of that. But there are people that will see that and actually get more discouraged to invest because of how complicated it is, rather than how can I know that investing is good for me for the long term. How do I just play in this market? And I think it's why real estate is so I guess exciting for people, because it's just a set it and forget it. You know what I mean? Like payments come out automatically. I'm winning over time.
One topic that I wanted to chat about is the student loan repayments. The payments are going to be starting on October 1st. Interest has already been accruing since September 1st. Today, actually, I saw this article on CNBC where Biden administration was planning a second round push for forgiveness. They're making it more targeted this time around. It's just an election play, most likely, but it's something that will be in the news circuits in 2024 more and more.
Dude, everyone's got to pay back their fucking student loans. There's no way we're getting out of this shit. Americans have to accept it.
Student debt needs to be overhauled completely. It doesn't make sense that it is the only type of debt that does not get eliminated in bankruptcy court, which allows or incentivizes universities to give loans out to people that are going for degrees that have a low percentage chance of paying the loan back in a reasonable amount of time. And financial literacy needs to be at the forefront of what you are being taught in high school. Our politicians need to do a better job of making sure that young adults are set up for success. When you turn 18, you can sign your life away for a student loan and not really grasp the severity of what you're signing. Going to an expensive university, whether it's an Ivy League or not, and getting a degree in an area that you may not get a high paying job, and you have a large loan payment for decades, may not be a great idea. It is a real sticking point with me if they made it where it would get eliminated in bankruptcy court. Maybe these universities wouldn't be incentivized just to give student loans to anybody, and they would actually have some type of system based on the merit of the degree and the likelihood of being able to afford repayments. Like, it's a huge problem. When you think about what the average person makes or the average household, student loan debt is crippling, and we need to do a better job at fixing this. Have you ever looked at the US debt clock?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
It is freaking scary. And
No, we're getting $2 billion a day in
Oh my
interest
God.
payments.
like, this should scare everybody. We need to really think about what we're doing. Right here is the big thing. The interest on the debt is now over $700 billion, almost as big as our defense budget. We are issuing long-term debt at such high rates because the Fed is holding rates higher for longer. This is insane. Absolutely
What does
insane.
Warren Buffett say about this? He said it doesn't matter at all.
Well, he also said, Tannor, that the whole Munger idea of, show me the incentives and I'll show you the results. That he basically said something to the effect of, and I might be misquoting this, but it was something around like, if the spending or the expenses are above a certain percentage, nobody's up for re-election. Okay, we'll make those the incentives, and then people will have a personal interest to spend less and to make sure that the books are balanced. And that's how you right-size the ship.
I thought you meant more of his quote of, he said, if you control the currency, then the debt doesn't matter. If you own the reserve currency and the printer, the number does not matter.
Yeah, but that's a big if, considering that we are on track to not be the world reserve currency.
That's a bunch of
anymore.
baloney.
It's not.
The US
No, it is
dollar-
a bunch of baloney, Steve.
The US
It is
dollar
not.
is used in
Oh my
more
God.
transactions worldwide than any other time in history. We just passed that
Tanner,
milestone.
do you know what the
like, very recently.
petrodollar is? The petrodollar is the currency that barrels of oil trades on. And it recently just started not only trading on the US currency. That's a big problem.
What percent?
Listen, you start letting Saudi Arabia and China deal in other currencies on the petrodollar. That's the beginning of a slippery slope. But look, the debt isn't a problem if you can service the debt. Our debt keeps going up and our interest keeps going up, and we are not increasing revenue nearly enough to keep up at this rate.
Isn't debt spending like more than military spending at this point?
The defense budget is $794 billion, interest on the debt $709 billion.
That should tell you everything you need to know. The scary thing here is that the interest on the debt, it doesn't increase linearly. It increases like exponentially, right? And so there is a finite amount of time until this thing becomes just ridiculous. And the fact that it's now one of the biggest expense line items, it should be cause for concern. Military spending is one of the things that America has been known for. It's the source of their hard power. They back that up through military spending. If the interest on their debt is the same amount as their military spending, that should be sounding alarm bells in your head.
I agree with you, but at the end of the day, I've always disagreed strongly with the idea that the inflation and a weak dollar somehow depowers the military. The military is the strength. And if you guys actually look at it, it's the next person in line is not even close. And I do think that that is a real back.
Last year, debt that we paid was 475 billion. It's now over 700 billion a year on that. That's a problem. In 1 year, that's a problem.
I'm
Yeah.
aware, but you're acting like it comes with no benefits.
What are the benefits?
And what are the benefits? Please explain this to me.
Well, I'm the
Explain to me the
better
benefits
economy that
besides
we're
taxes
actually
going
that
up.
we're
The economy is better now than it was in
well, the
2020.
growth
or-
in GDP is probably leveraged on the debt. Like if you're bringing on debt, you're going to be growing.
Yeah, but the debt almost doubled. The economy didn't almost double.
Sure. I mean, we went into a really bad time. What I'm saying is we could print out of this issue. It's not healthy to do that, but I'm saying you absolutely can do that. That's why Warren Buffett says it's absolutely not a problem.
Think of it this way, Tanner. If you had a
5
company
more years.
and the actual revenue was increasing by like 6% a year or less, and the expenses were doubling every year, would you invest in that company?
You're all investing in that company. So
Dang,
you
well,
guys are all steel manning this issue without realizing you have all your money in the US economy. You're all, everyone in the chat that's saying, oh, Tanner's BSing, blah, blah, blah. You're all betting on that machine. So take your money elsewhere if you are honestly against me, or you do fricking believe what I'm saying.
Sure, but both
Downsides.
things can be
Look,
true at the same time.
America
right?
is the greatest country on the planet. I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying the interest on the debt's a problem.
It's not the best country in the world if they lose the reserve currency. Like, everyone, Amit, Steve, Tevis, this has been the SoFi Weekly, but mainly just the investing
It
politics.
was a slow
whatever.
news week. We had to talk about some other stuff.
All right. Love you all.
See
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye, guys. See you next week.